nature needs to once more become sacred for humanity and to be held with a deep awe, respect, and even fear, at least of the consequences of wanton destruction. The result of the modern lack of respect for nature is the fearful prospect of dangerous climate change. The original meaning of the word sacred has a sense of the fearful, prescribed, or taboo. Film is a powerful medium that can get messages to a wide audience and help change perceptions and attitudes.
With 3 billion human beings on this planet under 25 years old, and most of them have a cell phone, and most of them have access in some way to this new technology, we have to be able to utilize it and to bring about this incredible transformation. Because in the next, I would say, from my perspective, in the next 10 years, the future of the human family and the degree we can really manifest our unity and oneness is going to be a direct result of how we interact and utilize digital technology. Because that is the place where right now the unfolding of human hearts is occurring.
Spiritually, we believe that the message travels the fastest through nature, through spirit. But we also have to take advantage of the technology that's there. For those that may not be able to hear the spirit that is of the voice that is traveling through the wind, through the trees, that we have to use this medium to try to reach people in a way that they're used to learning through the mind. The more you engage in a way of life that reflects that connection to spirit, you begin to recognize that we all have an opportunity to live that sacred every day of our lives.
We feel the most important thing in this film project is to give a platform for the elders and the wisdom keepers of these traditions to be able to come forward and share their messages and their wisdom. Well, what we're hoping to do in this film project is to do a very subtle shamanic journey for the audience, so that they, rather than just hearing the information, the beautiful sharing of the knowledge, that they can be moved and open their hearts and come into a realization that the sacred place is within their own heart, within their own being, and it's time now to return to that place in the center of the heart.
There are some films that are to me have been very instrumental in creating awareness about sacred spaces, about sacred sites. One that I immediately think of it's called In the Light of Reverence.
So the whole point of In the Light of Reverence was to give a voice to Native people, to explain what they mean by a sacred site or a sacred landscape, and to try to get people who don't see the world that way to think about that and consider it and try to figure out what's missing from our culture, that we might learn something from Native people.
I didn't really know what sacred spaces was before. I never really thought about it, I guess. And being a part of the Film Festival Society and being, at the Indigenous Film Festival throughout the week, I really was schooled in what sacred spaces are.
The intention was to make a film that would communicate to my own people or to the Western world the meaning of sacred places, the emotional power and the cultural meaning of sacred places.
The protection of sacred space and the honoring of sacred space, how regardless of sort of the Indigenous culture that's speaking, that there's a connection, and that they all know that there's a connection, and that they all know that everything is interconnected and works together. So whether it's the water that we drink, the ground that we live on, the people that walk the earth, the animals, the trees, like everything has a connection.
Sacred isn't kind of some woo-woo, new agey or Christian thing. It's just a really fundamental way of saying that it's the thing that we value the most highly, and it has power, and it has a spiritual dimension, that there's a dimension that we don't see to these physical resources.
I mean, some people might call it God, some people call it the goddess, some people might call it the creator. But I think that whatever you want to call it, it's a mystery, and it's something that we as human beings don't understand. I think it holds a key in that it helps us to understand that we don't know all the answers, that there is a mystery, and that we sometimes have to surrender to that mystery. And I think if we don't protect wild places, places that are considered sacred and still in their original form, like Mears Island or places in Clayoquot Sound, or there are many places left on Earth like that, that we won't have the opportunity to feel that mystery. And I think we would really be losing something as human beings.
In the film, one of the elders says, you know, you can go down the aisles in a grocery store and you see all these different brands of cereal, all different kinds of cereal. And you can pick out any one of those boxes of cereal. And, you know, it seems like it's almost endless, your choices. But when it comes to a sacred site, that's only one of its kind. And once it's gone, it's gone.
As the organizer of the Tofino Indigenous Film Festival, I was looking at the role that film could play in bridging the gap between the scientific and the spiritual. My journey began with a joint report issued by the World Wildlife Fund and the Alliance of Religions and Conservation. The report showed that sacred sites contained higher levels of biodiversity than other spaces close by. In my discussions with audience participants and filmmakers at the festival, as well as the many conversations with spiritual leaders and Indigenous elders in Lillooet, I began to see that these Indigenous films could not only bring attention to specific sacred sites, but could also deepen a person's connection to the earth by regarding it as sacred.
The sacred is sacred, whether we realize it or not. The idea somehow that I'm going to light some sweetgrass, I'm going to light some sage and make this sacred is really egotistical. The fact is, it's already sacred. I do this to bring myself into touch with the sacredness of it. I mean, this Mother Earth's sacred. Wherever I go.
What is sacred is what is alive and what gives life, and that we need to be appreciative of the source of our lives, so that if the earth gives us life, the earth is sacred.
Well, I think it's obvious that if people regard the natural world and natural systems and all the resources that we're reliant upon as sacred, then there's going to be so much more emphasis put on living in a sustainable, respectful way. And of course that means honoring everything as sacred, and therefore using only what one needs, and in a way that is respectful and includes reverence and gratitude.
We call certain places sacred sites, but actually all of this is sacred. All of it is sacred.
I think the problem with our culture is nature is a physical resource to be profited from and used and quantified. And in the Christian worldview, you know, hell is somewhere around here, but heaven is somewhere else. And transcendent. You know, the whole idea is to just get out of here, ultimately. And so this is a place, maybe, I mean, we had a Secretary of Interior in the United States who basically said, you know, well, the whole point is to use it all up before Jesus comes back. I heard American Indians talking about sacred places and saying, you know, these are ancestral places that our ancestors went for vision quests, or is the source of our water, or is a mountain where our spirits live.
I've been an activist for over 25 years on environmental issues, and sometimes people ask me, like, what keeps you going? Like, how can you keep going after all these years when a lot of times we don't win a lot of our issues, or we don't protect, sometimes we aren't successful at protecting the places that we want to protect. And for me, my strength really comes from that that place of having that sacred connection to the land.
These landscapes that we thought were wilderness actually are carefully manicured and managed landscapes that have these values of reverence and respect. And there's also the belief that prayer and ceremony have to do with the vitality of the place, that the earth gives more if you give energy back to the earth and you have a healthy relationship. And these are ideas that you would think are really obvious, but in terms of science, they're just being looked at right now.
Prayer is really important. That it made me feel that we do have a chance at saving this place. We're confronted with the issues that seem, I don't know, they just make me feel small, like I can't do a lot. That film made me feel that there is a lot of power in prayer individually and how important it is in groups as well.
There is something that often doesn't get spoken, but I think you could see in the movie how important prayer is as a solution for the grandmothers. And I think we need to understand that prayer in and of itself, focused, powerful intention, can literally change things.
Sacredness is intention, really, and I really got that from it, that everything's sacred. It's just as long as the presence and the intention is there, and that's a big shift that I feel a lot of people could definitely have.
I think it's one of the keys that is missing from our approaches to protecting the environment. We tend to go at it from a really scientific point of view, from the view of reason, and I think that doesn't always hold the answers.
I believe that the film of the grandmothers for the next 7 generations, it does that. It draws you in, and you feel it's like your heart becomes, you become connected with what's being said, with what you're seeing. You become connected. I go to the screenings, and when I go to the screenings, I look at the audience and I watch them. And it's not, and these films are, it's like, they're not just coming, they think when they walk in, they think they're just coming in to see a film. And they come in, they sit back, get real comfortable. But then I look, pretty soon, they're sitting up. And there's this connection that's made. And they're feeling it. They're feeling it, they're crying, they're laughing. Many
human beings are visual. They want to see it. For me, when I see it and feel it. And I think that the American Indian Film Festival, in fact, United Indian All Tribes Foundation, we hosted the first ever American Indian Film Festival, and Mike Smith, who now does the one in San Francisco, was working with United Indians, and he came up with the idea. He said, let's have a film festival.
Films, film festivals, any the media where people can get a sudden flare of insight. I think that's the power of those.
I think that what's come out of it more than anything is a real building of awareness from people that there is something worth protecting in Indigenous cultures, that what we protect in Indigenous cultures we also protect in the world, and of what Indigenous wisdom is.
You can't continue to have this knowledge contained within a small group. We must take advantage again of whatever medium is available to help share the message.
This is key, is telling the stories. Our whole culture as Aboriginal people is around telling stories.
As a filmmaker looking for interesting stories, when I heard that, I heard a need, I heard a deep human emotion, and I also heard about something that I didn't understand, sacred places.